Hey, what's up, guys? It's Flashwing here. This is probably not what you guys expected to see today, but this is going to be the second installment of my garage chat, or garage side chat. I don't know really which one I'm going to go with, but we are here in the garage, but today we are in the car. Now, I wanted to wait to do this vlog a little bit later, but I've been incredibly excited with a lot of my new subscribers. Those of you who have just recently subscribed to the channel within the past few days and found me either through other vloggers or because of my crash video, welcome. If you've also seen the other first garage side chat video, if you have, you probably will kind of have an idea what to expect a little bit from this one, but if you haven't, check it out. So I briefly hinted on my last vlog about a fire that took place with this car, and I wanted to tell this story not only because I think it's a cool story, but also because I've seen a couple other vloggers who have had titles of like, hey, this crazy thing happened to me, and then ended up not being a crazy thing. So this is probably a story from one of the craziest weekends I've had, and I feel like it actually fits the bill. So I wanted to tell the story about my RX8, a little bit of a fire that happened, and it was one of those weekends again that, talking about the previous subject about how motorcycles can tell you a lot about who you are, this was one of those weekends that kind of defined me as an individual in terms of what I can and can't handle, how I handle crisis, things like that. And again, not bragging, just putting it out there that everybody has these experiences at one point where you kind of sink or swim. So this took place back in 2010. And every year, for the past now 16 years, there is a big car show, a rotary-powered car show out in Irvine, California, at the Mazda North American headquarters. The name of the car show is called Sevenstock, and it's mainly named after the RX7, and the show was taking place before the RX8 was even around. Great car show where rotary vehicles from all over North America go out to, at that time, the Mazda North American facility, have a big car show. So every year, this was the second or third year, I believe, that I went. I think it was the second year, the second show. So the RX8, first of all, if you're not familiar with the RX8, you don't know Mazdas very well, the RX series vehicles are rotary powered. And I could go into a long diatribe about how that works and what it is. My advice is Google rotary engine. There's lots of visuals and diagrams about how it works and what's good and what's bad about it. So this car is in a much different state today than it was back then. For anybody who's interested in seeing shots of the car, I promised that I would get you shots of the car. It has been neglected since I got the R1 back in July. It needs to be cleaned up, detailed. Some odds and ends are fixed. It's really not in a condition that I feel like showing, but the interior has always been perfectly displayable, and so that's why I'm sitting in it today. So 2010, I'm driving out with a group of about 25 cars from Arizona to California to go to Irvine for this show. Now, at the time, the car had Nitrous installed on it, and it was a fantastic install done by a friend of mine who runs Black Halo Racing. It was a really great system, and I was pushing the envelope with the amount of nitrous that I was injecting in the car. Without going into long technical details, it's not a huge shot of nitrous for any of you car guys out there. There are mitigating circumstances for why I can't run very high shots in this car, but suffice to say, I was on the edge of what the car could support. It had worked fine previously up until the story I'm about to tell you. So we're driving out to California. We just got gas in Banning, I believe. I don't know the California highways too well, but it was either the 10 or like the Riverside 91, but it was a major interstate highway that we were on. We're leaving Banning, and everybody's just goosing it up the on-ramp onto the highway. So I'm thinking, yeah, man, I'm going to do a little bit of showing off, you know, so I'm over here to reach over, you know, and I open up the tank, hit the arming switch, and just gas it. And the car starts running really lean. I'm like making good power, car's pulling like mad, and then boom, I hear a single loud bang, and then of course the noise changes dramatically after that. Now, when a rotary engine blows, there's two things to keep in mind. One, it doesn't stop working like a piston motor does. A piston motor components can punch holes in the side of the engine and leak out oil and fluids, and then you're done. Or jam parts and the motor seizes. The rotary engine doesn't do that. When it blows, it does still work. Only one, typically, rotor chamber will blow, and the other one will still work, but you're talking, you now have half an engine, essentially. The second thing is it sounds like a really aggressive lawnmower. It's already kind of a high winding motor anyway, but it starts getting that real sort of lawnmower-ish sound. I never heard that noise before, but everybody who I have friends with who have blown motors just basically said, you will know when you've blown it. Well, so I'm freaking out, like, oh my God, what happened? I'm on the highway, I'm moving, I'm driving. So I pick up the phone and I call my friend Jeff, who was several cars ahead. He was the rotary guy that I knew, the guru. And I get him on the phone, and I'm driving, I'm like, Jeff, I think I just blew my engine. Well, what does it sound like? I tell him, and he says, okay, here's what you do. Don't let it drop in the lower RPMs. Don't let the motor die. Keep your foot on the gas. Keep the RPMs high. Keep driving, and you're going to be okay. All right, so I'm hard on the gas. I got, 8,000, 9,000 RPMs. Well, now it's 3 o'clock in the afternoon. Traffic is starting to get heavy. So now we have to start doing the stop and go. Well, I'm trying to stop the car and clutch and shift and doing all these things. So I'm like having to use the e-brake. But I'm making it work. I'm taking my time. I'm leaving lots of room. Well, Jeff had been leading the group for some of this. He made a mistake and he got off the highway where we weren't supposed to get off. So we pull off the highway, and I'm blindly following people because I have no idea where I'm going. I'm completely ensconced in what's happening here. I pull off. We're coming down the off-ramp, and Jeff realizes he's at the front of the pack, and I'm almost at the rear. I'm like second to last car. Jeff keeps going. The entire group gets back on the highway because they don't realize I just blew my engine, leaving me at the intersection. So I'm coming down to the stop, and there's not a lot of space, so I'm braking and I'm clutching and I'm trying to do several things at once. Well, I'm not paying attention to what I'm doing. I let off the throttle and the engine dies right there at the intersection. And I'm literally sitting at the stoplight watching everyone drive away, and I'm sitting here with a car that is now dead in the water. So I recompose myself. I try to start the car. It won't start. It's done. My friend Carl was behind me and was semi-trapped, but he was nice enough to help me. So I get out of the car and I realize I have to push this thing out of the way before I get a bunch of cars ramming me in the rear and causing another major accident. Carl runs over. We start pushing the car. Now at the time too, a little caveat is there were a couple of homeless people that were panhandling on the side of the highway. They came over to help without uttering a word. They didn't heckle. They didn't demand money. They just came over and they helped me push. And I ended up tossing them a grip of cash afterwards because they didn't have to do that, and they helped me when I needed it most. So we get the car on the side of the road, and we managed to push it to an adjacent street. And I'm thinking, I can get this thing running, because this is where I mentioned in my previous video that my stubbornness took over. I know it's going to be expensive to tow this thing. And I don't know how expensive, but I know it's going to be expensive. We were about 40 miles from the hotel in Irvine. So stubbornly, I'm thinking I'm going to get the car running and I'm going to drive it to the hotel. Well, it's not starting. I'm working with the laptop. I'm trying to change the tune. It's not working. I can't get it started. And of course, I don't want to run the battery down. And Carl is over there with jumper cables on the battery. We're trying to just start the car. We're just cranking and cranking and cranking. Nothing's working. So finally, I asked him, I said, let's get it to the top of the hill. Because the road had a slight incline to it. Now, so both of us pushed the car up this hill. Now, yeah, granted, it wasn't a steep hill, but this is a 3,000-pound car, and it was 2 guys. So we managed to take about 20 minutes to push it to the top of the hill. And I'm like, I'm going to push start the car. If I can get it in motion, I can get it started. Well, we get to the top of the hill, and we turn the car around, and Carl gives me a little bit of a shove. I'm in the driver's seat. Now I'm coasting down the hill, and I mean, it was pretty much get it started or bust, because it was a T intersection at the end of this hill. And if I missed the hill or anything like that, there was not going to be any real, we're not going to be able to push the car back up to the hill because we were both exhausted. If I screw up, I could crash into a curb on the opposite side. So this was it. So as I'm approaching the bottom of the hill, I'm trying to clutch kick the car. The car starts, I get it running, and I'm just like standing on the gas trying to keep it alive. Carl's like, good, we're good, okay. He gets in his car, we take off, and we start driving towards the hotel. We get on the highway, we had to get on another interchange, and so at first Carl pulls up next to me. He's like, man, your car, it really stinks. Okay, well, I blew my motor. You know, it's probably pouring gas through the engine and it's not being burned. Well, what I didn't know, the unburnt fuel plus the engine was running really lean, where you have a lot more air than you do gas. Lean mixtures burn really hot. There was a hole on the bottom of my intake manifold from the nitrous. The nitrous kind of backfired a little bit, possibly when the engine blew. And there was a piece of my intake that was missing on the bottom, and it was enough that the air fuel was running very, very lean. I was surprised the car was running, but it was still running. The second time, Carl pulls up next to me, and we're like in traffic, you know, and I'm in the middle lane. I'm just trying to keep the car composed. And he's like, your exhaust pipes, he's yelling at me, are red hot glowing. And I don't know why that didn't click at the time, but you have to think, this is a rear-wheel drive car. If all of the exhaust, if the exhaust components in the back of the car, the tips, were glowing red, you could only imagine what the rest of the exhaust looked like. It had to have been just incredibly hot. And I'm thinking, that's not good. It can't be good, but you know what? I'm going. Well, the third time he pulls up next to me, he's yelling at me. He's like, your car is on fire. So at that point, I looked over to my right, and I didn't see any. I saw a hole in traffic. I yanked the wheel, crossed 3 or 4 lanes of traffic. Somehow I didn't get hit. Pull off to the side of the road. But in the back of my mind, I'm thinking, well, how bad can it be? How bad I looked in the rearview mirror. I don't see any flames. I don't see any smoke. Well, I slam on the brakes, and this huge cloud of smoke goes billowing by me. Now I'm panicking. This is not good. So I get out of the car. I go around to the back, and there is fire coming from underneath the car, like wrapping around the bumper. I didn't have a fire extinguisher. And I am contemplating ripping my shirt off to beat the fire out. Well, Carl had a small fire extinguisher, but there was a lady in a Dodge Ram pickup, like a construction type truck, that had a 10-pound tank that she brought, and they doused the entire rear of the car in fire extinguisher material. So here I am. I'm on the side of the road in California. I'm almost 400 miles from home with a car with a blown engine, and now that had a small fire in the back. Definitely not one of my better days. So I thank the lady for her, for helping save my car. And now not only do I have a blown motor, but now I have a car that's partially torched in the back. And like if I have, I'll put a picture in here if I haven't already, that the exhaust shrouds around the exhaust had literally melted. There was like this black goo that was coming off the back of the vehicle. And so I mean, it's like, what did it, I'm like, this is insane. This is the most important thing that I own, and it is not only a paperweight, but it is a paperweight that was on fire. I don't know how bad the damage is. I mean, I'm looking underneath, it looked okay, but who knows. So now I call a tow truck, and the tow truck driver shows up, and I I knew it, like, again, I knew it was going to be pricey. I knew I was going to take it on the chin. And the guy says, well, you know, we tow for California Highway Patrol, and we have to charge you CHP rates. Now, for all I know, I got taken for a ride, literally, here. But the guy says, well, but I've got a buddy. So he tells me $450 to tow 40 miles, which I thought was outrageous. But he's like, I got a buddy of mine that'll do it for $350. I'm thinking $350, $100 off. I said, call him. He said, you know, I needed a flatbed and all that crap. So his buddy shows up. We exchange cash. And of course, he's like, yeah, you need to, you know, pay me for, you know, the drive back to the office and all this crap. I'm pretty confident I got taken advantage of, but it is what it is. So we hook up the car. I get in Carl's RX8. We drive to the hotel. Pull the car into the hotel, put it in a parking space. I pay the tow truck driver, and here I am. I'm at the hotel. And I had previously talked to my friend in the time, my boss Charles, who specializes in these cars, and I'm, you know, on the side of the road, and I'm freaking out. And he's like, dude, just calm down. We're going to get it fixed. Because, of course, this was my only form of transportation as well. I need to make sure I put that asterisk there. This was my only car. So that I of course, I participated. I went to the car show. I was working for BHR at the time, covering the event on a live stream. And it was kind of interesting. You know, I'm walking around. By then, everybody had heard, a lot of the guys in Arizona had heard the car. I blew my engine, and so people are coming up to me as though I just lost a family member. Oh, I'm so sorry for your loss. You know, I'm so sorry. I'm going to give my condolences to you for your, you know, your blown engine. And I tried to salvage the weekend as best I could. So when I got there, there was a friend of mine, my friend James, who was sharing a hotel room with me to split costs, and his buddy Joe, who was from California, was also there to come see the show. So I go to my hotel room, and I immediately had to find a way to get my car home. That was the only thing I could worry about at that time. Well, my friend James says, well, hey, look, you know, I've got access to a truck. It's a 400, you know, I can tow a car with it. We just need to get a trailer. And this was after another friend of mine had contacted someone he knew in the racing community and put me in touch with this individual who was coming to California to get an enclosed trailer. Unfortunately, this gentleman decided to try and take advantage of me by telling me not only was he going to charge me for his hotel and the gas on the way back, but he had never driven an enclosed trailer before, including one with a car, and I would be responsible for any damage that would occur in transit. This guy was already coming out to California. He already had a hotel. He was already. I would have paid for gas on the way back, but he wanted me to pay for gas going to and from and his hotel. I told him to kindly go pound sand. So my friend James says, dude, I got a truck. We just need a trailer. And I'm thinking, okay, well, where the hell are we going to get a trailer? And the truck, mind you, was in Phoenix. So we have a plan. Plan was Sunday morning. This is Friday. Sunday morning, we're going to get up. We're going to get in my James's car. We're going to drive back to Phoenix. We're going to get his truck. We're going to get a trailer. We're going to come back to California, back to Irvine, pick up the car, and take it back to Phoenix. Very ambitious plan. We tell the hotel, car is going to be here overnight. Please don't tow it. It's not running. We're going to come get it. So Sunday morning started the 36-hour day, where we got up at 7 o'clock. We had breakfast. We took off for Phoenix. We got back to Phoenix around 2 o'clock in the afternoon. We got a trailer from U-Haul, and we took off for California. So now, you know, it's like, you know, somewhere between like 4 and 5 o'clock. We drive, you know, 5 hours or so, 5-6 hours to Irvine. And we get to Irvine around 11 o'clock at night. It's dark. And James and his friend Joe are there as well, because he was going to take Joe back to California. And Joe says, hey, man, I'll go an extra day and help you guys out. Joe ended up being the linchpin of this operation, and I'll explain a little bit why later. So we get back to LA. We get out to Irvine. It's like 11:30 at night. We got the trailer. We're all set to go. And I told James, I was like, well, the car's been cooled. Rotaries tend, especially if they're blown, they will start sometimes if they're cold. Everything's compressed. So I told James, I said, we can get the car started. I can drive it up on the trailer. We'll be good. Well, I go, put the key in. Battery is dead as a doornail. It is completely flat. It wasn't flat before, but it was completely flat now. We didn't bring any jumper cables. We had nothing. So we're like, how the hell are we going to get the car onto the trailer? We don't have a winch. We can't push it up the trailer. So this hotel had an underground parking garage. There was a straight shot. There was a long driving lane for the parking lot. And at the very end of that lot, it curved down and went into a single level underground parking garage. Well, I had this idea. We can park the truck and the trailer at the very edge of the road and on the downward incline. I can get the car running start. I can hit the trailer, drive the car up on the trailer, and we're good. This was a pretty bold plan because if any of you have seen the fail videos for loading motorcycles on the back of trucks, that was in my head what could happen. So I had no headlights. So thankfully I had tools with me, and I knew because that I was going to have to take the front bumper off because I was going to hit that trailer hard, and I didn't want to break my front bumper because it's a lowered car. So we're out here in pitch black in the middle of this hotel parking lot. I take the bumper off the car. I stash, the bumper in the back seat because it will fit back here. And we line the truck up, and I only had one shot at this because, one, if I miss the trailer, I'm going to damage the car. I'm going to bust the front end up because I'm going to have 3,000 pounds moving at a, 5-10 miles an hour. Two, we're not going to be able, it'll be down on such a downward slope that I won't be able to turn the car around and get it back up without someone towing me out. So I had one shot. And so James and Joe were like, we're not driving the car. Sorry. And I told them that's okay, because if anybody's going to screw my car up, it's going to be me. So we get the truck lined up and yada yada. Now, my friend Jeff drives a lowered RX8 as well, and Jeff has always had ramps on the ends of his driveway. And hitting those ramps was particularly difficult because they were literally a tire length wide. You could not see them. You can't see here. You guys are in here. Can you see the road? No, you can't. So I couldn't see, anything. I could not see the ramps by the time I got up to them. So I had to aim the car precisely. The ramps on the trailer were only big enough for a tire. So I had one shot. So they lined me up as best I could, and James and Joe start pushing, and away I go. And I got again, no headlights, nothing. Like I had a street light over the truck. That's all I had. And I'm just holding the wheel steady, and the car's going. And I aimed it up as best I knew how, and hitting those ramps over at Jeff's house was absolutely awesome in terms of practice, because I hit that trailer dead on the car. I'm just like, I hit the trailer. I'm like, oh my God, here we go. The car is going up. It gets halfway over, and I hear it scraping on the side. I hear my side skirts scraping on the trailer, and then the car stops. It stops halfway up the goddamn trailer. So I stand on the brakes and I pull the e-brake. And thankfully, I hadn't gotten to a portion of the trailer yet where I really couldn't open the door. I still had room. So I opened the door, and I was like, you guys need to get over here. So they run over because they see the car is literally teetering on the edge of the trailer, and it's not going to go up anymore on its own. So we have Joe get in the car. He was the skinniest of James, and I are both big guys. Joe was like 100 pounds soaking wet with bricks on his back. So Joe hops in the car, unhooks the e-brake, and James and I are pushing the car, and we literally cannot get it to budge. We're holding it, but we can't move it. So we take a chance, and I told Joe, I said, Joe, get out of the car and get back here and help us. So Joe opens the door, he gets out of the car, closes the door. So now the car is driverless on a trailer pointing down hill, and I'm thinking, I just hope to God this thing doesn't jump the trailer and hit the truck. Joe comes in the back, and Joe his weight plus his pushing was enough to get the car to go forward. And the car flies forward, hits the edge of the trailer, and stops. No damage, no nothing. Everything's cool. And it was like, oh my God. Oh, sigh of relief. The car is now on the trailer, and it is secured and ready to go. So we get all the straps on the car. We get the car all tied down. We get in the truck, and we take off for Phoenix. James had driven trailers before. You guys have to excuse me. I'm wearing a headband here, and it's like makes my head feel like it's going to implode. So James had driven trailers before, and so he was taking us through some of the tighter areas of the city. But by the time we got out of the city, he's like, okay, I'm done driving. And now, granted, we had been up since 7 o'clock that morning. It was now 1 o'clock in the morning, 1:30 in the morning. It took us a couple hours to rig the car up and get everything set. So I drove the entire way back to Phoenix. And by that time it was 5, 6, or 7-ish. Like, we were getting into town in Phoenix about the time that, oh, and I have to point out the fact that I completely forgot that we ended up getting back a little bit later because we had to take Joe home. So we had to drive Joe an hour north from Irvine, drop him off, and then we took off for Phoenix. So we got back to Phoenix, in the morning-ish, and we got over to my friend Charles's house. He was gracious enough to loan me his garage to do the rebuild project, and in the process of dropping the car off, James and I had unhooked the trailer from the truck, and we were just going to push the car down the ramp. And I'm in the car, and I give it a shove off, and as I'm coming down, of course, because the trailer wasn't anchored to the truck, it came straight up. And so I rock all the way back with the car, and the trailer does like this mousetrap slap. And on its way back down, it hits the back of the tailgate and puts a giant dent in the back of the tailgate, which was just the cherry on top for an already crappy weekend. And we pushed the car in the garage, and I was going to wait for Charles to help me out with getting that project done. And then, everybody on the team that I worked for and all my friends, we were able to rip the car apart and rebuild the motor. But there is a nice ending to this story. I'm on my way home, and of course, again, this was my only vehicle that I had. And my great good friends, I call them, they're really family. My friends Mike and Jeanette called me because I had posted over Facebook. And my friend Mike says, hey, I hear you need a set of wheels. And I was like, yeah, I kind of do. I was looking at getting a rental car I thought it was just going to be a couple of weeks, not realizing it would have been later. It was months before we got this car fixed. And he says, hey, I've got a Cavalier over here that I can let you have. And he had this yellow Cavalier outside. And at this point, I didn't care what I got. And he's like, this was my brother's car, and he's in the military, he's deployed, and he's left this car here. He's like, my wife hates this car. It was bright yellow. And his brother thought that he was going to be a street racer, and so his car allegedly got broken into and stuff was stolen out of the car on base. So he stripped the car out. It had a passenger seat, it had no rear seats, no trunk, no lining. The floor, everything was gone. The carpet was gone. The doors were bare. Like, it looked like a completely stripped out race car. It was a 5-speed manual, which is cool because I drive manuals everywhere. And like this huge loud fart can exhaust. I'll have to dig up a picture of you guys when I was at the Scottsdale Pavilions with it. It was hilarious. The car was a riot to drive. It was so loud and obnoxious. It was hilarious to see people's reactions when I would drive it. But he's like, if you come pick this car up, it's yours. And later on, he sold me the car for nothing because his wife hated that car so much. But like, that was an incredible amount of help because I had no car. And I drove that car for 11 months, 9 months. I think I had that car. And eventually I got the RX8 going, but I drove that car back and forth to work. And eventually I used that as a trade to get the current car that I have that I drive as my daily. And there was a little bit of a weird snafu with that where it came into play and it ended up working out great. But throughout all that story, the things that remained constant were, you know, learning things about myself, such as how I act under pressure, how I act under circumstances that are beyond my control, and also the understanding that we all have times when we're going to lean on our friends and how important that is to have those relationships and how important it is to help each other out when you need it. You know, I am incredibly grateful and indebted to my friend James, his friend Joe, and my friends Mike and Jeanette, and my friend Charles, and all of my other car club friends who helped me with getting this car home and getting it rebuilt. I didn't do any of this myself. I mean, it's, you know, I have wrenching that I do on my own and stuff like that, but I mean, my friends and my family were instrumental in helping me with this car along the way. And I mean, you know, I can't imagine what that situation would have been like if I had to do it all on my own. But that is my crazy weekend story. I no longer use nitrous on the car. Since then, the car is turbocharged, so I traded one for the other. You guys will have a chance to see this car. It's around. I'm going to be moving soon, and so I'll have all the garage stuff cleaned up. But that's my garage side chat. I hope you guys enjoyed it, and I'd be really interested to hear your comments on the story and you know, just some of the tidbits that went along with it. So thank you very much for watching. I hope you guys enjoyed it, and we'll see you next time.